The sound of those footsteps is what stayed with him. Not the voices, not the moving drawer, not even the light that seemed to switch itself on. It was the sound of someone, or something, running up a basement staircase toward him. More than 20 years have passed since that summer afternoon, but even now, whenever he hears footsteps charging up a flight of stairs, he's instantly transported back to a small low-income housing complex where a routine cleaning job became one of the most unsettling experiences of his life. At the time, he was 15 or 16 years old and looking for a way to earn money during summer break. Through a property manager he knew personally, a woman he had occasionally babysat for, he landed a surprisingly well-paying job cleaning vacant condominium units. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was simple. Whenever tenants moved out, crews were sent in to prepare the units for the next family. Sometimes the homes were left neat and empty. Other times, they looked as though people had abandoned them in the middle of their lives. Furniture remained where it had always been. Clothes hung in closets. Half-filled cupboards sat untouched. It wasn't unusual to find personal belongings scattered everywhere, creating the strange feeling that the previous residents might return at any moment. One afternoon, he was assigned to work with a university student named Jen. She was around 20 or 21 years old and had far more experience with the job. Naturally, she took charge while he followed her lead. Their assignment that day was a condo located at the very end of a row of units. At first glance, it looked no different from the others. But before long, every detail of its layout would become impossible to forget. The front door opened directly into the living room. To the right sat two staircases. One led to the second-floor bedrooms. The other, hidden behind a door, descended into the basement. The basement stairs twisted twice on the way down, preventing anyone on the main floor from seeing the bottom. Below was a large, unfinished concrete room containing only a washer, dryer, furnace, and a single hanging light bulb. No storage rooms, no closets, no hidden corners, no place for anyone to conceal themselves. That detail would become critically important later. When they entered the condo, the atmosphere immediately felt strange. The previous tenants had clearly left in a hurry. The kitchen was filthy. Belongings still covered counters and shelves. Drawers contained personal items. It looked less like a move and more like an evacuation. Without thinking much of it, they began sorting through everything, filling garbage bags and setting aside useful items for donation. Outside, the summer sun shone brightly. Inside, however, the condo felt oddly heavy. Neither of them knew it yet, but the afternoon was only beginning. For the next several hours, the work was routine. Bagging abandoned belongings, scrubbing surfaces, clearing out years of accumulated dirt. Eventually, they reached one of the most frustrating parts of any cleaning job, moving appliances. The oven and refrigerator had to be pulled away from the walls and cleaned thoroughly. As they worked around the oven, they removed the storage drawer beneath it. When the time came to reinstall it, they discovered a problem. The rails were bent. The drawer refused to slide back into place. They pushed, pulled, adjusted. Nothing worked. Finally, standing on opposite sides, they did what seemed like the fastest solution. They kicked it, again and again. Eventually, the drawer jammed itself firmly underneath the oven. Success. At least, that's what they thought. When they attempted to pull it back out, it wouldn't move at all. Well, that's the property manager's problem now, Jen joked. They laughed and moved on. Soon afterward, they split up to finish faster. Jen headed upstairs to clean the bedrooms while he remained downstairs removing glass light fixtures so they could be washed. The condo was quiet. Only the occasional sound of cleaning echoed through the rooms. Then he heard it. His name. It came from upstairs, clear enough to make him stop what he was doing. "Yeah," he called back. No answer. After a moment, he climbed the stairs. When he found Jen, she was standing in one of the bedrooms cleaning. Headphones covered her ears. She looked completely confused when he asked what she wanted. "I didn't call you. You just said my name." "No, I didn't." She laughed. He shrugged it off. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe some distant noise had sounded like a voice. Still, as he walked back downstairs, he couldn't shake a small feeling of discomfort. Part of that discomfort came from something else inside the unit. Above the staircase was an attic opening. The access cover was missing. Every time he walked beneath it, he found himself glancing upward. The square opening revealed nothing except darkness. A silent black void staring back at him. A few minutes later, he heard his name again. This time, The voice seemed even clearer. Again, he called out. Almost instantly, Jin shouted from upstairs. "I didn't call you. You're hearing things." Her response should have been reassuring. Instead, it somehow made everything feel worse. The condo remained silent afterward. No movement, no voices, no explanation. At that moment, neither of them felt frightened. Confused, maybe. Uneasy, definitely. But frightened? Not yet. That feeling would come soon enough. And when it arrived, it would hit both of them at the same time. The next incident happened in the kitchen. At first, it seemed impossible. He was standing at the sink, cleaning one of the glass light covers. Everything felt normal again. The strange voices had been pushed to the back of his mind. Then he turned around. His heart skipped. The oven drawer was halfway out. For a moment, he simply stared. That made no sense. Earlier, both he and Jin had practically kicked the thing into place. Afterward, they had confirmed it was completely stuck. Yet there it was, pulled out as though someone had casually opened it. His first thought wasn't paranormal. It was practical. Maybe it had somehow worked itself loose. Without much consideration, he shoved it back with his foot. The drawer resisted. He kicked harder, several times. Finally, it wedged itself firmly underneath the oven again. To be absolutely sure, he grabbed the handle and pulled. Nothing. Completely stuck. Satisfied, he returned to work. Only a few minutes passed. When he turned around again, a chill spread through his body. The drawer was back out, exactly as before, halfway extended, waiting. He hadn't heard scraping metal, hadn't heard movement, and nobody else was downstairs. This time he didn't touch it. He simply stared for several seconds. Something about the sight felt deeply wrong. The drawer hadn't slipped. It had been jammed into place. Eventually, he decided to leave it alone. Whatever was happening, it was no longer his concern. He checked on Jen upstairs. She was exactly where she had been before, cleaning, listening to music, completely unaware, trying to ignore the growing unease. He returned downstairs and continued reinstalling the cleaned light fixtures. Bright summer sunlight streamed through the windows, making the artificial lights unnecessary. So he switched them off while he worked. Standing on a ladder, he carefully lifted a fixture into position. Then the room exploded with brightness. The light switched on. Instantly, without warning, the sudden flash startled him. His balance vanished. The ladder shifted beneath him. He crashed backward. A split second later, the glass fixture slipped from his hands and shattered against the floor. For several moments, he remained frozen where he had fallen. His pulse hammered inside his ears. Then he looked toward the light switch. Nobody stood near it. No one. And from upstairs, he could still hear Jen moving around. Only seconds had passed. There was simply no way she could have come downstairs, turned on the switch, and returned upstairs. Yet the light was on, by itself. At least, that was the only explanation he could see. For the first time all afternoon, genuine fear began creeping into his thoughts. Something wasn't right inside that condo. He immediately decided he didn't want to work alone anymore. Still shaken from the fall, he headed upstairs and found Jen. The moment he explained what had happened, her expression changed. The confidence she'd carried all day seemed to disappear. Then she told him something that made the situation even worse. A few minutes earlier, she had heard someone call her name. Not once, but clearly enough to get her attention. And it hadn't sounded like him. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The realization settled over them slowly. Both had heard voices. Both had experienced things they couldn't explain. And neither could comfortably dismiss it anymore. The atmosphere inside the condo suddenly felt different, heavier. Every creak seemed louder. Every quiet moment seemed suspicious. The reassuring sounds of ordinary work had vanished. Now there was only anticipation, the feeling that something else might happen at any moment. Unfortunately, one task remained unfinished. The basement. Neither wanted to say it aloud, but neither wanted to go down there alone. So they went together. The basement door opened with a soft creak. They descended the twisting staircase side by side. As always, the room below was exactly what it appeared to be. One large concrete space. Empty. Open. Exposed. The hanging bulb cast harsh shadows across the unfinished floor. The furnace sat silent. The washer and dryer remained still. There was nowhere anyone could hide. Nowhere. Jin swept while he sat on the dryer talking with her. They tried to keep the conversation casual. Normal. Anything to distract themselves. Eventually, the sweeping was finished. Nothing happened. No voices. No strange sounds. No moving objects. The basement seemed completely ordinary. Relief slowly replaced anxiety. Maybe everything had been a coincidence after all. Maybe they had simply worked themselves up. Together, they climbed back upstairs and began collecting cleaning supplies. The job was nearly finished. Soon they would be leaving. The tension seemed to be fading. Then, standing only a couple feet from the open basement doorway, he heard something below. A footstep. Heavy. Distinct. Both of them froze instantly. Another footstep followed. Then another. The sounds echoed upward from deep inside the basement staircase. Neither asked what the other had heard. There was no need. Their expressions said everything. Someone was down there. Or at least it sounded exactly like someone was down there. The footsteps continued. Slow at first. Measured. Deliberate. And then, without warning, everything changed. The footsteps accelerated. What had been walking was now running. Fast. Violent. Directly toward them. The sound thundered up the staircase. The running footsteps exploded through the stairwell. Loud. Heavy. Rapid. Every impact echoed against the walls as whatever was below raced upward toward the open doorway. For a fraction of a second, both of them remained frozen. The human brain sometimes needs time to process fear. Neither could quite believe what they were hearing. But the sound kept getting closer. 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 The staircase twisted twice, preventing them from seeing the source. All they could hear was movement charging toward them from below. He looked at Jen. The color had completely drained from her face. She looked exactly how he felt. Terrified. Neither spoke. There was no discussion. No attempt to investigate. No brave decision to look down the stairs. Instinct took over. He grabbed the basement door and slammed it shut with all the force he could muster. The impact echoed through the condo. Then they ran. Not walked. Not hurried. Ran. They burst through the front door and sprinted across the lawn. The summer afternoon that had seemed so bright earlier now felt unreal. Adrenaline drowned out everything except the desperate need to get away. At one point, he heard Jin shouting behind him. The key. The condo key was still inside. Without slowing down, he yelled back. Leave it. Neither stopped. Neither looked behind them. They kept running until they were far across the housing complex. Only then did they finally slow down. The details afterward remained blurred by panic. Eventually, they returned to the property manager and reported that someone might have been inside the unit. Their cleaning supplies remained behind. Neither had any intention of going back. As far as he knows, the property manager contacted police before anyone re-entered the condo. But neither he nor Jen ever described everything they had experienced. What would they have said? That invisible voices had spent the afternoon calling their names? That a jammed drawer repeatedly pulled itself open? That a light switch appeared to activate itself? And that something had finally come running up the basement stairs toward them? The story sounded ridiculous even to them. Yet one fact has never changed. The basement had been empty. They knew that because they had both been down there. It was a single open room with nowhere for anyone to hide. Even today, more than 2 decades later, he remains skeptical of most paranormal claims. He's experienced strange things that probably have logical explanations. This experience is different. Maybe the voices were imagined. Maybe the drawer had some mechanical defect. Maybe the light switch malfunctioned. Those possibilities exist. But the footsteps don't fit. Those footsteps were unmistakable. They sounded exactly like a person sprinting up a staircase directly toward them. And after more than 20 years, he still cannot explain who or what was coming up those stairs that summer afternoon.